ladies and gentlemen, this is John. Welcome back to another episode of the Subcontinent. Our program aims to address important issues in the subcontinent which affect the governments, people, organizations, and the region of South Asia as a whole. We will try to explain the issues, break down controversies surrounding them, and try to have some external perspectives from experts and people. Please stay with us.
In this edition of the Subcontinent, we are going to talk about the Persian New Year, or Nowruz, and the various forms it is celebrated across the subcontinent. And we shall discuss the ancient Iranian festival as a platform for closer cooperation and interaction throughout the globe.
Since the beginning of humanity, people from all throughout the globe have had some form of Springfest to celebrate the reappearance of life. For many civilizations, it is called Nowruz. Nowruz, which literally means new day in Persian, has traveled to all corners of the planet and put on different costumes and traits. Blended with different cultures and communities through history, today, Nowruz has shared a story narrated with myriad of nuances by all those who know it.
Nowruz marks the start of spring and is a celebration of nature and environment. But it has survived history and passed across geography because it means so much more than a mere seasonal festival. It is a fantastic collection of traditions and a system of values shared by many civilizations across the globe.
The celebration of Nowruz is basically the celebration of nature. And the changes we have with the change of the season, we see that in the basically traditional philosophical traditions, people do believe that their life, their beliefs are influenced by the natural surroundings, and there are many such thinkings.
Nowruz has changed and is still changing like a living and dynamic organism, but its core human values has remained through old traditions for more than 3,000 years. Spreading messages like hope, revival and diversity all over the world, Nowruz is celebrated almost everywhere, from Balkans to the Black Sea Basin, from the Caucasus to Central Asia, from the Middle East all through the subcontinent to the shores of the Pacific Ocean.
All these countries, particularly in Asia, they celebrate Nowruz, but there are local elements. Nowruz is celebrated in India, in different parts of India, but we have also similar celebration like Nowruz. We have Holi, we have Basant, and they have a different whole cultural background and its epistemology. But even the Nowruz that is celebrated in India has Indian and local elements.
According to the United Nations, today Nowruz festivities are held by over 300 million people in Iran, Kosovo, Georgia, Tajikistan, Albania, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and parts of India and Pakistan. The Kurdish populations of Turkey, Iraq and Syria, as well as the Turkic community in Western China, also celebrate the ancient Iranian fest.
The United Nations family celebrates Nowruz because this holiday has meaning for the whole world. Nowruz is a reminder of all that we have in common and the richness of our diversity.
Nowruz, like many other remnants of our mythological past, is a variegated palette of symbols and concepts that were created to remind us ideas like commonalities of life and death, the re-emergence of hope, and unity alongside diversity. Well, anyone who has ever lived or even visited, for example, India or Pakistan, knows well that the subcontinent is all about unity alongside diversity.
Nowruz is celebrated on the day of the astronomical vernal equinox. In stories, it marks the victory of King Jamshid against a killer mythological winter, but the reality is simpler. It marks the spring equinox, that is the moment the sun crosses the celestial equator and equalizes night and day. It may be one of the early things humans noticed about the cycle of life on their planet. Solstices and equinoxes are easily observable astronomical patterns. For the pastoralists of ancient Asian steppes, it was only an indicator of changing seasons. The spring equinox may have not enjoyed the significance and ritual connotations in the early days. However, Nowruz rose to prominence over time only after the first Indo-Europeans became settled farmers, when they began to use the spring celebration as the start of the planting seasons for sowing and harvesting crops. There is consensus among linguists and scholars that the word is a later name for the festival. The older name for the holiday was Navasarda, which meant New Year.
Nowruz is a day of celebrating life. On this day, people welcome the coming of spring, which symbolizes life. We believe that the warmth of life returns to the land during this season.
The United Nations has officially announced Nowruz as an international holiday. According to the official UN document, it promotes values of peace and solidarity between generations and within families, as well as reconciliation and neighborliness. Contributing to the cultural diversity and friendship among peoples and different communities, Nowruz plays a significant role in strengthening the cordial relations among peoples based on mutual respect and the ideals of peace and good neighborliness.
Nowruz is not a mere holiday. It is comprised of a set of ideas. If you focus on its deep human fundamentals, Nowruz may be able to go beyond a traditional festival. It may work as uniting force between the East and the West.
I have my very beautiful experience in Iran celebrating Nowruz. And Iran, as we see as our second home. Once I was there around 5 years ago on the occasion of Nowruz. I visited my friend's home, and it was very pleasant to see the elders giving Eid to youngers, and I too received the similar gift from the elders. And there was all celebration, people coming to see each other, having food, and celebrating, and it was a great moment and a great time.
Nowruz was developed by Zoroastrians but spread across the subcontinent mostly by Muslims. While in northern India, this festival's inception dates back to the Mughal era in western India. The festivity was brought by the Parsi community. It is among the rare occasions when arch-rivals Pakistan and India congratulate each other. There is a shared positive sense about it.
The festival of Nowruz has a special significance in Kashmir. It's celebrated here with great fervor. Nowruz celebrations here date back to pre-Islamic times, but after the arrival of Islamic scholars from Persian who introduced Islam here, the festival gained importance and has become an integral part of our rich cultural heritage.
Such an aspect can potentially create a platform for more positive interactions among different nations and governments. It may come to serve as a friendly vessel for better communication between New Delhi and Islamabad.
We can say that Nowruz is a kind of soft power we have in this region to connect the people of the whole region. If we say about India and Indian subcontinent, it is basically the region of celebrations, because we have different cultural identities, hundreds of the cultural identities, and they have their own festivities, beliefs, and cultural traditions. Nowruz is or was adopted and welcomed because it coincides with many of Indian celebrations. As I mentioned, Basant being celebrated in January, and Holi is being celebrated sometime in February or in early March. And similarly, we have other festivities, and we have Zoroastrians here, the migrants, they are called as Parsis. They do celebrate it, Nowruz. Vis-a-vis, they also have their own Shahanshahi calendar that comes in August, yet they do celebrate in Nowruz on the same time, celebrated everywhere. And we see the variations also. And there are also people in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, the Nawab family of Dhaka, in Hyderabad, in Gujarat, in Bombay, the Parsi people, even in Delhi. And for the whole Turkish period in India, that was for around 800 years, they had celebrated it. It was introduced in 13th century by Balban, who basically copied it from the Iranian tradition, and he himself tried to impostor himself being the descendant of Iranian great kings of Shahnama. So there has been a great tradition, and there is assimilation of the local elements.
The subcontinent has numerous regional and religious events survived throughout the various parts of history or mythology. For instance, Pongal is a multi-day Tamil harvest festival in South India, and Holi is the popular Hindu festival of spring. But for many, Nowruz has been added to the calendar because it covers them all. The multi-week cultural festival is a compact combination of fetes and fetes that in other parts of the world are presented in dozens of holidays and occasions scattered all along the year.
Nowruz is celebrated globally as the symbol of life and peace, but people in many of the countries that celebrate Nowruz are suffering from extreme distresses of war. During war and peace, famine and plague, and even now with this horrible pandemic, people tend to find the moment to notice and admire the return of spring. Applied in proper channels, Nowruz may be helpful in more political aspects. Imagine weeks of spring holidays for all those undergoing some sort of struggles, skirmishes or other conflicts. In almost all cultures and countries over the planet, sprouted seeds like wheat and barley play a central role in the rituals surrounding the return of life and end of darkness. With a cooperative spirit, Nowruz can bring light to the life of many of those who are longing for a blossom of hope.
Now, to have more insight and analysis, we are joined by Professor Syed Ainul Hasan. He's the Dean of School of Language, Literature and Cultural Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University. Professor Hasan, welcome to the show. So, how can Nowruz play a role in uniting the people? Can it serve as a framework for better interaction among countries?
First of all, I would like to extend my best wishes to all sisters and brothers who celebrate Nowruz. As a matter of fact, Nowruz symbolizes a particular historical event. But that event is not just confined to one section of society or one sect of people. Rather, the message is too big and too vast. And you know, it was Jamshid who defeated devils. And people from all walks of life, from all over the world, went to congratulate him. They presented gifts to Jamshid. On what basis? Basically, it was victory of good over evil. And therefore, the world community, even today, is searching for some peace plan. And that peace plan can come after the defeat of evildoers. Those who have the best script and best spirit, good spirit, for them, you see, it's all right. But those who do not possess this, I mean, they should be defeated. This is the purpose of the entire world. And therefore, this is very much relevant today, that this message can only combine the entire community of the world together.
All right, so what subcontinental feats of culture or tradition have been added to Nowruz in India and Pakistan?
Well, this is somewhat a highly political matter. And instead of, making any remark on this particular issue, I'm purely a person involved in academics. I see everything through academics. But India has been trying very hard to acknowledge the relevance of other people, other stakeholders, and therefore no country is left out. Our Prime Minister visited a large number of countries, and instead of having any kind of grudge, rather it was very, very peaceful and peace-inviting visits. And therefore, I believe that Indian government will definitely move forward again and again in this direction.
All right, Mr. Hassan, before moving ahead, let's just please take a quick look at how the global media has covered Nowruz, and then we can continue.
Nowruz traces its origins in the Iranian and Indian tradition of celebrating the season of regeneration. The origin of Nowruz celebrations has been mentioned in various historical accounts all over the world, but mostly in Muslim countries, both in Shia and Sunni communities. Most popularly celebrated in Maharashtra and Gujarat, the Persian New Year is known as Nowruz or Pateti and marks the beginning of the Iranian calendar. The holy occasion of the Iranian New Year's Day is commemorated around the world by celebrating with the spirit of love, peace, positivity, and prayer. Nowruz celebrations are sometimes known as Nowruz Jamshidi. According to the myth, Jamshid was carried through the air in a chariot, a feat that so amazed his subjects that they established a festival on that day. Similar mythological narratives exist in Indian and Turkish traditions, while the legend of Amu Nowruz is popular in the countries of Central Asia. In the 18th century, a rich tradesman from Surat, Nasir Vanji Kuhyaji, who often traveled to Iran, came to know about Nowruz and began celebrating the day back home that brought the festival to India. In the 19th century, another Parsi, Murwanji Pandey, started celebrating the day in Mumbai after his wife, who was from Iran, told him about it.
All right, Professor, welcome back. So, people from different races, ethnicities, and religions celebrate Nowruz or some kind of festival for spring. What is so innate within humans that they feel joyful or related with the change of season?
That's a very, very, important question today. What is happening in all Indian festivals are based on change of season. And in Iran also, it is the 21st March or Awwal Farwar, means change of season from one set to another. But let me tell you, most important thing is that, it happened, during the ancient time. And people migrated to India, like, Parsis. Some people say in 7th century and some say that later centuries. But what they did, they preserved their ancient culture. They brought their ancient culture with them to India. And similarly, during Balban's time, there were a large number of Persians present at the court of Balban, the Delhi Sultan. And therefore, Balban also started this festival. What? It has, basically a cultural root. And therefore, Balban wanted to combine all people together for this festivity. But later on, as people mention, and the historians also have mentioned, that it was Aurangzeb who somehow became more, rigid and in terms of religious activities, and therefore he disbanded Nowruz. But today, people in different states of India and outside India also, there are as many as I've learned that more than 40 countries celebrate Nowruz. So you can see the message of Nowruz and the importance of Nowruz. It is, if we confine it to the change of season only, then you see it becomes like, in Europe and America there is a different season. And today here you see in India, in Iran and other places, you see it's a different. What I say, that the message is so strong, combining all people together. But yes, there is a community, like, Shia community believes that 21st, what is the relevance of 21st March? They believe that this was the day when Prophet Muhammad announced the name of his successor, which is, say, pointed towards, Ghadir Khum and what happened there. So this also becomes a relevance that, look, there is a change of seat, change of power from one to another. And very amicably, you see, there is a change of power. This is how you see you can find so many relevance, not one single. It's the first day of new calendar. This is also relevant. In India, there is Holi, which is, which will follow immediately after Nowruz. You will find Holi celebration where people throw colors on each other, to friends and foes, distribute sweets, exchange flowers. And this is the time when best flowers are seen, whether in Iran or India. So therefore, change of season on one hand, but other relevance is also there. That people believe that, look, this is the day when we should meet each other, we should greet each other, we should celebrate together.
So, Professor, can Nowruz be used as a way for friendlier communications between India and Pakistan?
Well, Nowruz, you see, there is nobody who can deny the role of festivals in, combining communities together. And as I said earlier, India has been a peaceful and peace-loving country. And India always invites people to participate in festivities. Like, who says that Holi is different from Nowruz? Holi gives similar message, where, we find victory of good over evil. It's also a message of Holi festival, where, the bad thing is thrown to the dust. Then they lit fire and they cross, they go across the fire. You see, in Iran, they say, Surkhi wa Zardi. Here also they say that, look, I am for good, and let the bad spirit go to the hell. So this is a message. If Pakistan is accepting it, or in Central Asia it is prevalent, I think, well, one should make effort in order to combine the entire community of the world together. And Pakistan is not, away from the world community. Pakistan, and if Pakistan is extending hands in terms of, Indian festivals, if they say they want to celebrate, India will not stop them. India will encourage them.
All right, now that was our special episode about Nowruz and its potential as a vessel of peace and symbol of life. To watch a melange of tastiest bits and pieces of our show, and for more subcontinental updates, follow us on our social media platforms, and please make sure to give us feedback about what you think. We will make sure that your ideas are heard. We shall meet the same time, same day next week. Thanks for watching, and Nowruz Mubarak.